All right, welcome back to That's Some Cheese, part of the Vendetta Sports Podcast Network. Today is Monday, Memorial Day, May 30th, 2022, and today we have Jarrod Prosser here with us. Jarrod, what's going on?
Well, it doesn't really matter what's going on for me, Trey. This is the day that the Celtics made the finals. This is a good day for you.
Yes, I was up very, very, very late last night and got up early for this podcast, so had to do a little bit of celebrating.
See, I was up late last night too. Last night, my time, but that's for a completely different reason. And look, I know we're not here to talk about cycling, but I am a cycling nut. I love through this part of when the Giro, the Tour, the Vuelta are on.
Yeah.
I stay up unconscionably late and go to work shockingly tired. But shout out to Jai Hindley, young Australian 26-year-old who won the Giro, first Australian to win the Giro, second Australian after the great Cadel Evans to win a Grand Tour, and absolutely shat it in. He killed it. He's the second last stage in 3.5K on a mountaintop finish, put a minute and a half into Richard Carapaz, just absolutely killed it. I'm damn proud of him, very proud Australian when I was watching that over the last few nights. So that's a divergence into the lesser seen sports on Vendetta. But
that's Jarrod Prosser with cycling. He has articles on cycling. So
I did a while ago. Yeah. That was a previous life.
Yeah.
Very, very, very proud of the bloke. But yeah, we are here to talk about basketball, and I guess part of that, we've got to be careful not to make this the whole pod, but part of this pod will be about your Celtics.
Sure. I figure it's a great place to start right there. Let's first topic of the day. Let's just start right there.
Well, have the floor, Trey. These are your boys. Where do you want to go with it?
Wow, sports are just great, right? Sports are just great. They're just designed to teach you all these life lessons. I sat there. They were 18 and 21, and I had just thrown it in the towel. I was not watching this team anymore. There was no chance.
You absolutely had.
They blew like a 30-point lead to the Knicks in the middle of the year, and RJ Barrett hit that shot over him. I'm like, I'm not watching this. This is just a disaster.
Bong.
They're in the NBA Finals.
Mate, just on the Knicks. I mean, and I guess it's tied to the Celtics, given it was that first game, that overtime game to start the season. That clip just gets funnier and funnier of those New York fans going nuts. That is the greatest piece of unintentional comedy ever written.
And I'm sitting here, and I'm in the NBA Finals.
Oh, mate, I tell you,
you just never know, man. You just never know.
You got to give, yes, the players deserve credit and all that, but Ime Udoka, wow. I mean,
how about a guy that's turned it around?
Look, he obviously tried to, this is very much Brad Stevens' team. And, with Brad Stevens now, the GM, there's still his fingerprint all over it. There was never going to be a massive, shuttling around of players. But, Udoka clearly tried to change some things as to how they play on the court. And as you said, at 18 and 21, it was not working. I mean, you're on pace for 37 wins or 38 wins or something like that.
And specifically Udoka, he looked lost the first 2 months. There was a game against the Mavericks. He called a timeout. It completely reset the shot clock, and they lost the game because of him. He was lost.
And it honestly, the way he was talking, where he was constantly blaming the players for this, and the players have got to be this, the players have got to be that. It had a Jim Boylan feel to it for a little while there, like a old school hard ass, but he's going to lose the players within a season. Even Scott Skiles could get 2 or 3 seasons out of a team before they turned on him. It really didn't look good, but it's just clicked. It is just completely clicked for these guys, and they have been the best team in the NBA since Christmas Day, give or take, January.
It all starts up here. They always had this. They were just so mentally weak. During those Brad Stevens era, they didn't listen to him. They would shut down late in games. It would be your turn, my turn, Tatum thing. they were horrible. They never
Udoka was right.
horrible.
Maybe Udoka was right. It was it was the players all along. They needed to be harder. They needed to be tougher. They needed to build resilience. So all that stuff that everybody was, and me included, I was sitting there going, "Oh, I don't know about this. I thought Udoka would be great, but I hope he doesn't alienate his players in his very first year in his very first job." But
I thought he was going to get fired.
Credit to the man, he was dead right. He was absolutely right.
Man, it's just unbelievable sports. Maybe you're out of it. You never know.
Well, let's talk about that series. I mean,
yes, let's get into it.
We have been spoilt with some incredible basketball games across this entire playoffs, East, West, all around. Really, this was probably the one series where, if you're a neutral and just like from a basketball nerd perspective, it was still great. But if you're just trying to watch that game as a neutral, as a fan, like just, hey, flick through the telly and, oh, look, the basketball's on, let's sit and watch it. It sucked. Like, both teams played really, really good basketball, but just never at the same time. It was always a blowout one way or the other. It was incredible that these two teams just could not go for more than maybe a half of actually matching each other before one team would blow out the other. And the swings in games are incredible. And that even comes down to game one. Like from game one, there were just these massive hook turns of momentum that just were perplexing, frankly. It was such a strange series. Maybe that's got to do with the injuries. I don't know. But it was like, if you're actually analyzing the series, it's a very, very difficult series to put a finger on.
Yeah, for sure. The Celtics, like, the point differential is pretty big, actually, over the course of the series. They outscored them by a decent amount. I think it was.
Yeah, they did, and that's the weird thing. Like, you look at it,
34 over the series, which is not a small number.
Yeah. But this is where analyzing it becomes difficult because Boston, on the whole, like, if you look at, say, soccer and you see the possession stats, and it's like 65% to 35%, you go, this team must have dominated. But the 35% has more of the shots. They soak up the pressure and counterattack and those sorts of things. This was one of those games where Boston, for the most part, had the run of the play. But it seems like every time there was a big moment, Miami would have an answer. It was, they would have a response ready to go, whether it was an outlandish Jimmy Butler game or Bam deciding to actually shoot or whatever it was. Strus hitting 5 threes, Robinson getting exhumed. They always seemed to have some sort of answer. And it was just those little counter punches seemed to do enough to keep them in the series. It was such a difficult series to get a gauge on.
Well, I want to ask you this because nothing but respect on my end for the Miami Heat. Because that team, I mean, they are so well coached and their effort is out of the roof. Like, how many times was it just, lackadaisical Celtics not getting back on defense? Here come the Heat in 4 seconds, and there's the and one.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I've been on record. I've been on record so many times as saying Spoelstra is the best coach in the league, and it is like it's miles to second place.
There's so many times where there's a screen, and then there's one of those shooters back there, and they can't defend him, and it's a little bit past the 3-point line. Bang! There's a Strus, another one. God damn it!
The preparation he puts into his game plans for each individual team is like it's immense at every professional level, particularly NBA. But he goes above and beyond again. He has counters for every single play that he's ran. He's got a defense for every single defense. He's got a counter for. I think a fair bit of this series. Actually, before I get to that point, you talk about the effort that the Heat players always put in.
The Celtics are in this one, man.
Each culture.
Yeah,
but a lot of that comes from the fact that they've got a whole bunch of guys who have been doubted. Butler was a 30th pick who was never supposed to be a star. Lowry bounced around the league before finding a home in Toronto. Bam, barely made it into the lottery after being this 5-star recruit through high school. And then you throw in all of these bench guys: Robinson, Struess, Caleb Martin was a second-round. I think he was a second-round pick. He may have even been undrafted. Oladipo's a reclamation project.
Gabe Vincent.
Gabe Vincent's another one. Just pulled him out of nothing. There's all these guys that have had to scratch and claw. There's no Boston's got a pair of third overall picks, and one of them, arguably, even in the moment, arguably should have gone first. So they're guys who have been. It feels a bit reductive to say this, but they've been.
I think you might be able to say both guys would have gone first.
Look, that Jaylen Brown's was in retrospect.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, but at the time, it was a surprise that he went third.
Yes.
With Tatum's, it was pretty much a case of, well, we know Tatum or Fultz are the best players in this draft, and one of them will go 3 because the Lakers are fixated on Lonzo. So, yeah, that was a...
In retrospect, Ben Simmons isn't going first.
No, definitely not. But realistically, who could have guessed that he would have regressed? I mean, It's not just that he was like this when he was a rookie. He was a better player as a rookie than he is now.
For sure.
Offensively, at the very least. Defensively, he's probably better now. But offensively, he was better as a rookie. But we digress. Let's not get into Ben Simmons because I'll start throwing things at walls.
I like Brandon Ingram too.
Sorry?
I like Brandon Ingram too.
Yeah, he's really good. He's developed into a really good player. He got out of that toxic Lakers environment that was there when he was in his first few seasons, and he's developed as a result. But what the point I was going to make about heat culture, all these guys who have to work so hard because they haven't been handed stuff. The flip side of that is they're not as talented as the guys who've been drafted in the first round, in mid-first round, late first round, early second. Boston has a heap of those guys on their bench. A bunch of those guys are role players, support players for the Celtics. So hard work will only take you so far. These are professional basketballers. They've all had to work hard to some level. When the chips are down, you've got your stars on one side and the other side, but then you've got your support players, and then you've got the Heat's support players. All wonderful stories, but none of them have that pedigree, that natural ability.
It kind of felt like maybe like a boxing story or a UFC story where there's this one team and you kind of have to get over the hump if you're going to be a real title contender. I don't think Miami was going to beat Golden State, but in order for the Celtics to prove, okay, we belong, you got to take care of the teams like the Heat here.
Well, they really needed. I think their big one came in the second round. I think that was we need, because remember, this Heat team, yes, they made a finals, and yes, they were the number 1 seed, but it's been a weird season in the East, and the finals was in the bubble. Make of that what you will.
We could
Milwaukee are the
half hour on the Heat here.
Sorry,
I think we could spend a half hour on the Heat here. I have so many topics I want to talk about that.
Oh, look, the Heat. This team is incredible. I mean, Giamani and I were going to talk about what makes up a superstar when I was on a mini pod with him. And it was just too broad a question, basically. We couldn't really hit on it. But when I was thinking about it, I thought, is Jimmy Butler a superstar? If you took his regular seasons, no. All-star, yeah, absolutely. But you put him in a playoff setting, and he becomes a freaking beast. He becomes one of the best 2 or 3 players on the planet. And he does it every time he's in the playoffs. It's almost like he just paces himself. Almost like a 3-time, 4-time champion with a couple of MVPs has earned the right to pace themselves through 82 games. That seems to be what Jimmy Butler does. And then all of a sudden in the playoffs, bang, he's on.
It's weird, too, because I have that same feeling, except he's the kind of guy where it's like, okay, we're in a playoff series. I'll take him on my team. Like, every single time I'll take him on my team.
Oh, it's the old thing, who would you want in the foxhole with you? I'd have Jimmy Butler. Like, I mean, hopefully I'm never in the middle of a war in a foxhole.
He's so good as an off-ball defender,
do I need to get me out alive? But, Jimmy
3 or 4
Butler.
times a game was like, he fucking stole that again. God damn it.
He's a bad man. I mean, that performance in Game 6, considering he was like, yes, he was great in Game 7 as well, but he was quite clearly injured in both of those games. to will himself to a 47-point win, a 47-point game, to win an elimination game on the opposition's floor, and then to almost pull it out with a 35-point performance in Game 7. That's absurd. That is LeBron James. That's prime LeBron-esque. That's prime Jordan-esque.
Yeah. Despite missing that last shot, I think he's going to be remembered well for this series.
Oh, my God, yes. And I did tweet this out earlier today because there was so much discourse about him taking that last three. And could he have gotten a better shot? Absolutely. But it wasn't a bad shot.
If he makes that, he's a hero.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He, balls of steel, ice in his veins, all that sort of bollocks, But he had Horford backpedaling, so Horford was never going to be able to challenge the shot. So he could just rise up in rhythm off the bounce. And yeah, he's not a great three-point shooter, but it's the playoffs. Jimmy Butler is a better three-point shooter in the playoffs than he is.
And he had just made one of those shots.
Yeah, I mean, look, he hit the exact same shot late in the first half.
Yeah.
From the same position.
Mm-hmm.
Dribbling up, just center side of the right wing. So, yeah, I don't have an issue with the shot he took.
Me neither.
Given it was a 2-point game, home crowd, home whistle, should he have gone to the basket and tried to draw something on Horford? Probably, but Horford was killing it inside. What do you have? 3 blocks and he changed a bunch more. So there's no guarantee that he would have gotten a clean look. At the very least, taking that 3, he guarantees himself a clean look at the basket.
I'm with you.
Yeah. Again, it wasn't the best shot, but it wasn't a bad shot.
How many times has Damian Lillard taken a way worse 3 and it's gone in to be the hero?
Oh, but it's chalk and cheese there, though, Trey. Lillard's a far better shooter. And
I agree,
but he's also 6'2". Butler's 6'7" and built like a truck.
We're also talking about
Lillard tries to drive against Al Horford. Al Horford swallows that.
We're talking about a Miami team, though. If he waits and he lets the defense settle for them, and let's say there's a pass to be made, does he trust somebody else on his team to make a shot?
Well, probably not. They did trust Gabe Vincent to play before, and he hit the big 3. But
they're not even in the game without Butler.
No, of course not. Of course not.
They're down 20 without him.
And you have to let your superstar cook. That's the positive and negative of having a center of your solar system, is that you have to let them do their thing. But the option was never to pull it out. The option was either go to the basket hard and try to get the 3-point player at worst 2 free throws, or it was pull up for the clean look from the outside. And maybe he could have pulled up from the elbow, gone for the tie, knowing that Horford wasn't going to contest the shot. There's a few options there, but
I hate him at the free throw line too. Constantly getting to the line. He's constantly getting to the line.
Yeah. Well, again, he's got shoulders like a linebacker. Like, seriously,
always gets
there'd be footballers who look at him and go, "You got pads under that skin?" Like, he's huge.
The whole time at the TV, I'm like, "Stay on the ground, because he's constantly he's so good at drawing those.
Yep. And it's not the first fake; it's always the second, the third, and his fakes are never. This is getting into the technical side of your shot.
I'm just yelling at the TV the whole time.
Now, what sells it though? And yes, he sells it with his eyes, which is the main way you sell a fake. But his fakes are never quite the same cadence. Yeah. So you're not sitting there going, "Oh, that's a fake. That's a fake. That's a fake. This is different. It must be a shot." Every fake is just slightly different depth on how far he fakes, how deep he gets with his feet. It leaves the defender with absolutely no balance and no idea when the shot is coming. It's brilliant. He does it so well.
Stay on the ground. Stay on the ground. Stay on the ground.
Well, that's the thing. Your option is to just basically hope that he misses and don't foul him. Yeah,
that's the best.
Rise. Yeah, if you're a fast leaper, rise late and hope you can just put him off.
It's the best option. Stay on the ground.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about before we switch over to Boston again.
I have 2 specific Heat topics I really want to talk about.
Go for it.
Bam Adebayo.
That was the one I was going to ask.
There are just nights where, he's very aggressive. He's scoring. He's running up and down the floor. He's very versatile defensively. But then there are nights where it's like, he scored 4 points. And I don't think he even had a chance against Rob Williams or Al Horford down low. Like, this is a max contract player, and he wasn't always very good.
Calling his own shot is not a natural thing for Bam. He's a distributor. He's a fearsome defensive player and a really good complementary player. But for him, scoring off something that isn't garbage or isn't a third option, that's not a natural thing for him. It's something where he has to change his natural mindset. The other side of it is, and I was reading this today on another website. There's a lot of history between him and Grant Williams. They played each other in college and in high school, both North Carolina boys. And Grant Williams is one of these guys who always managed to slow Bam down. So I think there was a little bit of, okay, Rob Williams is a wonderful defender. And then when he's off, I've got to deal with either Horford or Grant Williams. And all three of them present very different problems. So when you're not a natural scorer like him, you almost have to, it's not just developing a scoring mindset, it's developing 3 different scoring mindsets. And when none of those are your natural mindset, that's pretty difficult. So there were times where he looked great, but there are times where he sort of reverted to type, where he was, awesome defensively, the connective tissue that makes the Heat run, but he would shoot the ball 7 times rather than 17 times. And, especially with so many players injured, Lowry out, Butler out, Hero out, Bam needed to take control more often. And that'll be a lesson for him. He's still young. It
was just very, I don't want to say discouraging because obviously I was happy with the win, but if Miami was going to win the series, Bam Adebayo had to be on his game. And there were too many times where, like, Miami really needs some offense here. Bam in the post. Oh, here's a front layup 3. Brick. Front layup, brick. Like,
it's not even Bam in the post because he's such a good ball handler and such a good distributor. You have to stay home. If you're playing 4 out with Bam, you have to stay home on the shooters because he will find them if you double team. And he's such a good ball handler. He's fast. He's agile. It's not even just throwing. Yeah, they did. It's not even throw it down to him in the post. It's let him drive from the top. Let him catch at the elbow. But
because there was a lot of times he'd come straight downhill and Horford would do his weird thing where he's off to the side.
Yeah. See, Horford's anticipation is wonderful. But the 2 Williamses, they are probably 2 of the best equipped defenders in the league to stop what Bam does well offensively when he's looking to score.
Grant Williams is
It was a bit of a nightmare matchup for Bam.
Yeah, absolutely. But like, if you're going to take
not quite a nightmare series, but it turned into a disappointing series.
Yeah, I don't know. Bam Adebayo, he's a max contract guy. It's just I need better from him.
In normal circumstance, let's assume that only one of Butler, Hero, and Lowry are injured. You don't need him to be the offensive fulcrum anymore. You don't need him to be the number 1 scorer. And suddenly what he does looks so much better. The issue was that their 3 main scorers for the Heat were, at one stage, they had all 3 of them out. Yeah, it wasn't like they were all out at different points. At one stage, they had all 3 of them out. And suddenly Bam, who is, as far as a scoring option, an offensive option, he's involved a lot, but as a scoring option, he's probably your 4th, maybe 5th player behind Strus.
But he has it in him, too. He has it in him.
He has the ability, but it's the mindset. You've got to look for your shot. That's the tough thing for him. It's not his natural way to sit there and go, I'm going to shoot 6 times this quarter. He's just not wired that way. Yeah, and I don't think he ever will be. And in a normal circumstance, the Heat don't need him to be wired that way.
Fair. And Hero being hurt, like I've been saying that all year. They're very Tyler Hero reliant. Like they need his stretches of offense. They have to get him.
Well, his ability to find a good mid-range jumper is a rare skill. He's really, really good at it. I don't necessarily enjoy watching Tyler Hero play, but I completely respect what he does for that offense. There are times when it just breaks down, and because he is a genuine 3-level scorer, it's not like where you can lay off Butler and absorb the hit to the chest. you have to come out to Hero because he'll hit the three. You have to respect his ability to get to the basket, and you have to respect his ability to stop and rise from 15 or 18. That's an impossible task for a defender. You can't guard everything.
I have one more Heat thing. I hate Kyle Lowry. Like, respect in the world for everybody else on the Heat team. Kyle Lowry is a joke at this point.
Let me ask you a counter question.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm ready.
Do you love Marcus Smart?
See, I knew you were going to go with this, and I had a stat prepared just in case you were going to go with this.
I don't give a fuck about stats. They are the same player 10 years apart.
No. Marcus Smart plays real defense. Does he flop? Absolutely. He flops. But that guy plays real defense. He goes to the hole. He grinds it out. Like, that guy really, really tries and competes his ass off. Lowry is a walking meme at this point. Like, you can't get around the corner. He's just, every time. It's literally.
Yeah, and we could be talking about a 36-year-old Smart like that too.
Oh, don't even say that.
What's Smart now? 26, 27, whatever he is.
Yeah, 27, I think.
Yeah. So, Lowry was never the defensive player that Smart is, but Smart will never be the offensive player that Lowry was in his prime either. But, they tend to balance out as far as what they could provide a team. They both flop. They both play every angle. All the
Lowry is just way, 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 way worse.
Yeah, he has to now. A, he's as old as the hills. B, so obviously he's lost more than one step. And he's also, he's hobbled. He had to try something. It's the playoffs. You don't leave it on the sideline.
How about this?
You gotta leave it on the
floor. Second spectrum tracking. 43.8% of drives, Kyle Lowry. Totally buy him.
Yeah, he can't move.
Can't move.
No, but again, he's old and playing on one leg. Of course,
but you can't even expect that. Like, if you try to send a screen on him, it's on him.
Yeah, of course. He's trying. If you know that you're playing on one leg and that the bloke you're playing against is 10 years younger and way faster, you can't sit there and go, oh well, I've had my day. No, it's the conference finals.
But he doesn't even
have to find an angle. You draw one dodgy whistle. That might be the difference.
But that's all he does. He doesn't try to score. He's just there to try to pick up fouls on other people. That's all he does.
Because he's old and injured. They needed him out there because they don't have another legitimate point guard. They really don't. Don't talk Gabe Vincent. He's not a starter in an NBA conference finals. But Larry had to be out there, and he was limited, so he had to pull whatever tricks he could. And that if there's ever a player who, in that circumstance, is going to go into the dark arts, it's Kyle Lowry.
I hate him. Postseason stats, Kyle Lowry. He shot 29%.
Yeah. Again, he spent most of it injured. Don't expect all-star Kyle Lowry. He's not that player anymore, Trey.
He's on the ground constantly.
That's the other thing. It's hard to have a good shooting percentage when you're sitting on your ass the whole game. But
he's on the ground the whole game.
Yeah. Look, as a 43-year-old baller, I can tell you that I spend a lot more time on the ground now too. That's not necessarily looking for fouls. It's just that I fall over more.
It could be him trying to get a rebound. He's going down, just hoping there's a foul.
Yeah. But again, you're saying
Crazy.
you're saying it's like Kyle Lowry has never done this before.
It's getting worse.
Have you ever watched Kyle Lowry play in his 15 years in the NBA?
I think it's getting worse. I think it's past the point where it's basketball.
Of course it is. But again, that's because he's old and injured. He had to do something because he couldn't just sit there and go, oh, well, look, he got past me. I'll get him next time. He had to do something. And that's his fallback. It's always been his fallback. Even back when he was with Memphis, that was his fallback.
It's horrible. It's getting worse, I think. It's getting worse.
Yeah, look, I think assuming he's healthy next season, there will be less of that. But but there'll be more of that than what there was 5 years ago because he's just at that stage of his career now. He's old.
There was a play, Giannis or Smart was guarding Giannis in the post, and when there was one time Giannis backed him in, and Smart took the contact, and you just knew he was going down. But like, there's a craftsmanship to it. Lowry, you can't be near the guy. It's every time.
Yeah, but again, to me, this isn't a shocking revelation. But we know that an old and injured Kyle Lowry is going to fall back on something, and it's always the flops. He always falls back onto trying to draw bullshit fouls. He's done it forever. Like, this isn't news.
I think it's worse than it's ever been.
Of course,
like I remember watching him with the Raptors, and he'd pull some shit and lay there for an extra second, hoping something would get reviewed. But like, now it's every play he does it.
Yeah, of course. But
he
again, we're going around in circles a bit. But yeah, we're going around in circles. But of course, it's going to be worse. He doesn't have anything else to give in this series. He can't move.
And I actually liked him being out there because I know if he shot the ball, it probably wasn't going in at the same time.
Yeah, aside from that one game where, was it game 6 where he picked it up? He was, yeah. It's one of those things where I felt sorry for him because he should not have been playing. But at the same time, the Heat needed, even if it's 60% of Lowry, they needed him out there because the alternatives, and it's not even the alternative in Chuck gave Vincent in, it's who takes Vincent's minutes. Yeah, that's where they'd really suffer. I don't think they played enough Cody Martin in this series.
Really?
Yeah. I like both the Martin twins. I think they're good players.
I think he's okay.
Yeah. Oh, no, but they're not world beaters, but
no.
Big, strong defenders who can guard multiple positions. They have enough shooting, enough playmaking that they're not liabilities on offense. I would have liked to see a little more of him, especially when you know that between Butler, Bam, and Oladipo off the bench, you've got guys who can create plays. So I would have liked to have seen a little more Martin in this series.
I'm trying to pull up Gabe Vincent's plus minus. I think it was actually really high. That's why I wanted to see it.
Yeah. But anyway, speaking of bench players, we need to acknowledge a momentous, and I don't use this word lightly, but all caps momentous moment in the NBA with the Celtics going through to the finals. This is the first finals for future Hall of Famer Nick Stauskas.
I thought you were
I don't know what he's going to be a Hall of Fame in, but he'll be in some Hall of Fame somewhere.
I thought you were going to go right to Horford and bang on me. That's fine.
No, I'm not that obvious. Come on. You know me by now.
Man,
it's all about Source Castillo, man. This is Castillo's final.
Where do we want to start with the Celtics?
Look, you mentioned Horford. I think it's a great place to start. If you said to me 12 months ago that Al Horford would be a pivotal player on a team that's going to the finals, I would have thought he would have come out to my country and we'd be watching him in the NBL.
I'm with you. He was actually not good during the regular season.
Oh, he was actively bad last season.
He averaged 10 points a game this season.
Yeah, but he did look good this season in doing it. Like, it was limited minutes. Like, he looked much more lively and spry. Maybe it was the fact that he didn't have to do as much when you've got Williams around and then when you reacquired Tice. But he did look good in limited minutes this season. But again, I could not see him doing this in the playoffs.
No.
Even with that resurgent, relatively resurgent regular season, I didn't see this happening in a conference finals.
He looks good defensively. That's the biggest thing. Like, he's moving.
Great. Not good. He looks great defensively. Like, this is, all defense, Hawks era Horford that we're seeing. Like, not quite as athletic, but certainly more crafty.
I don't know. Maybe 5 years ago, there were times where Tristan Thompson was beating the piss out of him in the post, killing him. Yeah. That was years ago.
Yeah. And I mean, look, Tristan Thompson is strong. Let's not, denigrate the fact that he's a big, hard man. But I mean, the fact that someone would throw the ball to Tristan Thompson and think he's got an advantage is an indictment in and of itself.
Yeah, and it happened all the time when they played Cleveland.
He's got clubs for hands, that man. So, no, but Horford, mate, Ray, I don't have a drink with me, but if I had one, I'd raise it to him because Al Horford,
Yeah.
he is providing hope for old ballers everywhere. You start to go downhill, it's not linear. I always say progression isn't linear. Coming back down that hill clearly isn't linear either. We're seeing an Indian
Really
summer.
provide spacing too.
I am all in for it.
Provide spacing offensively too.
Yeah, and look,
Make the
really,
shot.
that's all he's going to do offensively now. Like, he can post a bit. He's a good playmaker. Doesn't have the speed, but he can still shoot. And that's all you need when you're playing defense the way he is. That's all you need.
Yeah, especially when like a guy like Jaylen Brown, when he drives to the basket, he needs less bodies in there. And Horford being able to go out to the 3 line, it helps tremendously.
Absolutely, it takes away a shot blocker. It means that there's not another person digging in on those, that really, well, let's just call it what it is crappy ball handling from Brown.
Yeah,
I don't want to go too much more into Celtics yet because I want to delve in. We'll get to a finals preview, but I think we need to head west to that long forgotten series between Golden State and Dallas.
Fair.
I picked Miami in 7 for the East, and that was before every player got injured from both sides. But I seem to recall picking Dallas in this one too. Clearly, I drank the Kool-Aid of how they handled.
I don't know
how they handled Phoenix and how Memphis gave Golden State fits. So, yeah, drank the
I
Kool-Aid.
remember being more confident that Golden State would finish it early than you did, but I thought you still picked Golden State. I could be wrong.
I may have. No, you're right. I think I did, but I think I went 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I went 7 for it. But no, I got to admit, we always talk about make or miss league, and Dallas are probably the most make or miss team out there because if people are missing, it's 1 on 5. And outside of really one game, or maybe 2 games realistically, was it game 2, the one that Dallas really should have won and they blew it? I think it was game 2. In 3 out of the 5 games, Dallas just couldn't shoot. Luka aside, Dallas couldn't shoot.
Reggie Bullock had a game where he was like 0 for 11 or something.
Yeah, and I think Finney Smith went 0 for in the same game as well, which doesn't help. I mean, you need those 2 out there as defensive aces at the forward positions, and if they're not hitting catch and shoot threes, then, I mean, they just become liabilities on one side of the ball. No one guards them. Absolutely. Because neither of them are going to break you down off the dribble. So, yeah, when they're not making shots, it just becomes all Luka all the time. And, as good as he is, he's not quite there yet. I thought Dinwiddie was really good.
The Suns, now that Golden State finished off Mavericks a little early. Do we look at the Suns a little bit
there?
Do we look at the Suns a little bit differently? Oh, Golden State, they just took out Dallas in 5. What was wrong with you, Phoenix?
Well, I got to admit, I didn't know at the time that Chris Paul was injured by Jay Crowder. So that explains why Paul was so rough to finish that series. But I got to admit, I did look at it and go, I don't know, if Dallas make their shots, I reckon they can give Luka enough support here. Because it was partly that I looked at the way Memphis gave Golden State a lot of issues. But, the Warriors are, 6 finals in 8 years. They found another gear. They've been here before. They paced themselves well, and now they're playing at 100%. And look what they did. They just destroyed the Mavs.
I don't have a ton on the Mavs other than like potential moves they could make, which could be another pod for another day.
Oh man, that's a deep dive.
Yeah,
and there's been a lot of talk about getting a genuine rim protector in Gobert, and I think the Gobert-Doncic partnership would work really well offensively as well. And Gobert, was very quietly the engine that ran that Utah offense as much as the defense. His ability to space vertically kept those shooters open. Or at the very least, if you stay with the shooters, you've got a 7'1" guy with 1,000-foot arms that you can just throw it up to. Doncic just have a field day throwing lobs to Gobert. But you're right, that's a whole different topic. So we could be here for hours just talking about Dallas's off-season. Look, Dinwiddie was really good. Jalen Brunson had his moments, although all that money he made in the Utah series, He's just incrementally handing it back after the Phoenix and the Golden State series. And look, to me, Trey, probably the biggest take out of it is Luka's got to get fit. Like he has got to sit there and seriously put time into his body. Like you look at Jokic. Jokic isn't, he's not prime Bill Russell athletically or fitness-wise. It's not like he's turned himself into, Hakeem Olajuwon, but he's a lot fitter than what he was 3 seasons ago. And now he's a 2-time MVP. He finally took he went from serious to super serious on his fitness. And, he's reaping the rewards. I think Doncic is a long way off being even pro athlete level serious about his fitness. If he can,
I don't think there's any question he's got another level to climb.
Oh God, yeah, he's 23, and we haven't seen him. We haven't seen him learn the game of basketball as far as he can learn it yet. He will still be picking up things as he goes. He'll improve more skills. Like he'll develop step backs going to his right. He'll develop little nuances on how to create angles for passes, which he does brilliantly anyway. But he'll develop nuance defensively as well, which is a big thing for him. But the biggest thing I think is, and it's not necessarily he needs to drop 15 pounds or something like that, but he needs, ideally I would like to see him drop 15 pounds and not necessarily, drop fat and add muscle, but he certainly needs to do something. He's clearly not able to go for 45 minutes, which you need to when you are the offense of that team, the single offensive hub. If he does get fit, then, God help the rest of the NBA.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
he's that good. He's just that good. But man,
let's get into the final preview.
No, let's get into the Warriors.
Well, I was going to talk plenty about the Warriors during it.
Yeah. Well, man, they're figuring it out. Kevon Looney's going for 20 and 10.
I wanted to start with Wiggins, actually.
I got to admit, I never saw it with Wiggins, even when he was the number 1 pick. I looked at him and thought he might be Rudy Gay. I was not sold on Wiggins at all.
Well, Rudy Gay was an accurate description about 6 months ago.
Well, that's the thing. That mega draft of him, Jabari, and Embiid, everyone said, all 3 are going to be superstars. I looked at him and thought, Wiggins reminds me of Rudy Gay. Jabari Parker's best case scenario is Carmelo Anthony, and he was on his way there until he did his knee the second time, and then it just all changed for him. And I thought Embiid could be anything, but Sam Bowie could have been anything as well. All those injuries when he was that young, to his feet, to his back, I just thought, giant red flags flying way up in the sky. I wasn't sold on any of them. Wiggins quite clearly just needed to get into a winning situation, into the right culture.
It's taken a while.
It has, but he had, the old Yoda thing. Before you learn, you have to unlearn, or something like that. He had 6 or 7 years of really bad habits to unlearn before he could start to learn the Golden State way. So, realistically, given what they've done with him in the short time they've had him, has been incredible. They have turned him into perhaps the perfect role player. A guy who can defend 3, sometimes 4 positions. He will hit threes. He can attack off the bounce. He can play make a little. And if the stars are aligned, he can go for 35. That is the
defend is a key word you use there. Defend. That's not an adjective he could have used a couple years ago.
No, and he was a lockdown defender at college. There wasn't a college game where he and Jabari played each other. And Wiggins absolutely owned him. Absolutely owned him. I honestly think that was the game that made him the number 1 pick over Parker. Because people went, wow, he can do it at both ends. But he just never really did. It was bad, not necessarily bad shooting, but bad shot choice, bad decision-making on offense, and just so lax, so, laissez-faire on defense. He didn't give a fuck.
whatever the term you want to use for Butler having like that eye of the tiger, he didn't have any of it.
No, that's it. You wouldn't even say he was scared of the moment because he never had moments to be scared of. But well, I mean, let's face it, his entire Timberwolves career, I think he touched the playoffs once, and that was when Jimmy Butler was there. But yeah, I mean, Golden State have turned him into, I mean, if you designed a role player out of if you had to build one out of a kit, you'd build Andrew Wiggins.
But think of the conversations we've had about Wiggins. Like, what was it? How many years ago he got traded for D'Angelo Russell? Like, and they were like,
he got traded with a first rounder for D'Angelo Russell.
It's pretty good.
It's Wiggins and Kuminga for Russell.
Kuminga's going to be pretty good.
He is going to be pretty good. And look, I'm probably higher on D'Angelo Russell than a lot of people, but that trade was bad in the moment, and it's looking worse by the day.
Yeah.
Like that's
Wiggins just isn't a bad contract anymore. Like, you would almost want him.
It's not quite Joe Barry Carroll for Parrish and McHale, but like it's one of those ones that's in that conversation of worst 2-for-1s ever.
He's a real player.
He is. He's a perfect role player. Like, if you put Wiggins on, let's say you put him on Houston. If Andrew Wiggins had been traded to Houston rather than Golden State, we would see him put up big numbers with shocking efficiency and play no defense. He'd be exactly the same, and I'm talking the post-Harden Rockets here. He would be exactly the same as what he had been in Minnesota. The big thing with him is that, A, he's been put into a winning culture with people who care nothing other than winning, but he's also not the main man anymore. He's just allowed to do his thing. And, you find your jump shot is a lot smoother when there's less pressure on it. And I'm not talking pressure from defense. I'm talking pressure in between your ears.
And people around him. I mean, having Curry and Thompson and everybody.
But that's why there's no pressure, because his shots aren't making or breaking the offense anymore.
Yeah.
He's not shooting 25 times a game. He's got Curry and Thompson and Poole to do all of this stuff. He's got dead-eye shooters like Otto Porter, or occasionally they bring Bielitsa out of mothballs. They've got guys who know how to make shots. So Wiggins can just play in the cracks. He can play in the crevices of the offense. And he's so athletic, and he's had enough reps as a main guy that he's become really good at that.
I wanted to start with Wiggins because there's this conversation that's going around, and it's driving me absolutely insane about how people are going to really sit here and blame Kevin Durant. Like, oh my God, like, look, they don't need Kevin Durant. They were bad for a long time. They had the Wiseman pick. I mean, this team was awful without Kevin Durant.
As great as Wiggins is as the fourth option, I think anyone in their right mind would take Kevin Durant.
Yeah. I mean, I can't believe people are really trying to be like, oh, well, they didn't really need Durant. They were bad. And they needed guys like Kuminga and Poole and to really reset the roster. If they keep Durant, they're not. I mean, they don't have all those guys. They don't have Poole.
No, they don't. Or Wiseman. I mean, not that Wiseman's made any difference, but they don't have Wiseman either.
They don't have Kuminga.
But the roster, especially the back end of the roster, looked totally different because those 2 years that they were out of the playoffs, they've bled all these youngsters. Even someone like a Juan Toscano Anderson, he wouldn't have seen the light of day on this team if they were still pushing for the playoffs. And he's seen reps. Moses Moody has been really good in moments in these playoffs.
Wouldn't have him either.
He wouldn't be seeing any, they probably wouldn't have developed Jordan Poole, realistically. No. Because he was really only this season and late last season that he started to emerge.
Well, they wouldn't even have all the young guys on the team because their record would be too good.
Yeah, they would. But I guess the other side of it is that they would be getting veterans in. Like someone like Otto Porter might still have ended up there. And speaking of perfect fits, he's just the ideal fit. But they would have been, bringing in, they would have been bringing in a PJ Tucker, for instance, rather than giving Toscano Anderson minutes. Not saying they would have brought in specifically PJ, but someone like that, the ready-made plug-and-play veteran for the championship run.
I just think the people that are actually blaming Durant are physically insane.
Oh, KD.
I mean, what are we doing?
Next to Jordan, he's the best scorer I've ever seen. And look,
Yeah.
I was too young to see Kareem's 70s prime. I didn't get to see Chamberlain and all these guys, but didn't get to see Maravich. But next to Jordan, Kevin Durant is the best scorer I have ever seen, best pure scorer. Like, if he wants to get a particular shot, he will get a particular shot. The only person I've seen who was able to do that was Jordan, and he did it in an era where people carried bats onto the court. He's also an excellent defender. He's not a great playmaker, but he's developed that over the years. How anyone can sit there and say, you know what? I think I prefer Andrew Wiggins. And again, this is no slice on Wiggins, because he's really good, but he's not an all-time great. You're basically saying, I'll take the really good guy over the all-time great guy. That's just fucking mad.
If they had this team with Durant inserted for Wiggins, I'd have no chance.
Oh, look, even if, let's say, the Achilles tear still happens, Clay still does his knee, all the injuries still happen. So they basically go a year without Kevin Durant. They go 2 years without Klay Thompson. But Durant re-signs. They'd have a year to blood all of these guys. All of a sudden, you're not having to throw speculative money at the Kelly Oubres of the world and people like that. They would have been contending last season.
I know.
They would have been contending last season. And yes, that means they don't have, they wouldn't have Kuminga because they wouldn't have had Russell to trade for that pick. But they wouldn't have Moody because they wouldn't have been picking 14th. But that might mean they have Bones Highland or something like that.
Sure.
So, there's for every loss of a player, there's an opportunity to put someone else in. So, I mean, if you sat there and said, okay, this team's got Looney in the middle, they've got Green, they've got Durant, they've got Thompson, who's looking, pretty good all things considered, and they've got Curry, and then off the bench they've got a backcourt of Poole and Highland, Otto Porter coming off the bench. I mean, that's a championship side.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think these people that are sitting here like blaming Durant, like, oh man, like, look, they didn't need him, like, crazy.
No,
insane.
I mean, look, they're right in that they don't need him, but if they had a choice, they'd take him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they don't have all these young guys if he doesn't leave. So
no, exactly. So should we look at the matchup?
Yes, I'm ready for that.
Oh man, where do you want to start with this?
I don't know.
And you're the man in green.
I actually do think the Celtics match up with them pretty well because I think one of their biggest weaknesses when Robert Williams isn't on the floor, they're bad at getting rebounds. And I don't think the Warriors have these mountains that are going to out-rebound them.
No, I mean, Green is not the rebounder he was. Looney works hard, but he's not with someone who rebounds outside.
That's the part that makes me feel the best. There's too many times when they're playing like a Giannis or an Embiid where he'll miss the first one, he'll get the second one. He may even miss the second one, gets the third one. Now it's an and one. It's like, I just don't think Golden State has a guy like that.
They're good team rebounders, and they've got rebounders, all over the court, but no one dominant rebounder. But then again, neither to Boston, so that's where it does match up well. Like Boston's defense matches up well with everyone, and you know what? Just a point there. This is one of those matchups where people have been saying the league has gone more offensive and all that sort of thing. We have the number 1 and 2 defense in the league playing off for the finals, playing off for the championship.
Boom.
So, as much as the league has become more offensive, defense still wins championships.
And so important come playoff time. Like, we kept seeing these teams. How many times did Boston hunt Vincent or hunt Strus? Like, that was the only offense. Like, they didn't try to draw plays or anything. It's like, hey, how can I get a switch on Strus? Okay, now I'm going to go one-on-one.
And that goes back to what I was saying before about how, yes, the Heat of, they're renowned for taking these guys from nowhere and turning them into legitimate rotation pieces, but they don't have the same talent level. Like, does Max Strus have the same talent level as Derek White?
No.
No, exactly. And that's because one was drafted late in the first round and the other one wasn't drafted. Yeah, there is a reason for that.
You brought up defense. It's like you can't even have one guy on the floor who's a liability because they like these offenses, they don't care. They will just whoever offense, one guy, one-on-one, here we go.
Oh yeah, Peyton Pritchard will be mothballed this series, I think. He runs the show well. He can shoot, and look, he shoots
very well.
He's not the liability defensively that he's made out to be, but at the same time, he's not good. And when you've got, look, Thompson's not going to cook him off the dribble, but some combination of Curry, Poole, their eyes will light up when they see.
So he's really the only bad defender on the whole team.
He realistically he is. That's exactly right. I mean, Derek White is picked on, and Derek White is a good defender. He's not great, but he's good. The only other one who might be picked on is Daniel Tice if they get him on switches.
I don't think he's even going to play.
No, I don't think he's going to play much either. Because again, the only way he'll play is if it's a let's stretch the floor scenario. He's basically
one of their biggest in foul trouble. Then maybe he'll
exactly. Like he's a lesser version of Horford. Like he's smart defensively but not athletic. He can shoot the ball but not quite as well as Horford. He can distribute but not quite as well as Horford. He could have a spot in this series because he's not going to get bullied down low. Because Tice is the size of a power forward. He's 6'8" and not particularly built. But Looney, Green, none of them are going to punish him in the post. None of them are going to take him down low.
That's why I feel good, actually, Celtics wise. Like they don't have a guy that's going to beat them up really in the post.
No, but at the same time, that could because what's Kevon Looney's strength? It's post defense. Does this mean we see a lot more of Draymond Green at center? Do we even see Otto Porter play center?
Oh boy.
No, just I don't know. Go for complete shooting.
Celtics either. I don't think you can go too small because they are a big team.
They are, but this might be something where you zig whilst the Celtics zag. Because as great as Green is, like he's a savant defensively and he's a wonderful playmaker, but he's not a shooter. He never has been a shooter. No. Whereas Otto Porter can shoot the lights out, and he is 6'9". He's the size of Robert Williams, or the height. He's taller than Williams. Fair enough, he's not as broad and as strong, and certainly not nearly as athletic. But the Celtics defense has been predicated on let's put. It's the old thing that Golden State used to do with Andrew Bogut, where they put Andrew Bogut on the worst offensive player and then let him roam. So this is what they do with Time Lord. They put him on the worst offensive player and let him roam. So if you're going to have Kevon Looney out there, he can, his shooting range is the length of his arm. That's it. If he's not dunking, he's not scoring. So if you take him out and you put Otto Porter in, knowing that he's not going to get cooked defensively, he's more switchable than Looney, and there's no brute of a player who's going to score down low because Robert Williams isn't the post player by any means. And you're having to rely on 1,000-year-old Horford's offense, and he was never a great low post player, even in his prime. No. Where do you put Time Lord? You can't leave Draymond Green open. His passing will cut you to ribbons if you let him get a runway. Where does that leave Robert Williams? He has to guard someone. It's the same conundrum that Utah faced against the Clippers.
I think he's pretty good guarding people, though. I know he's a little banged up, but
no. I'm not saying he can't guard him one-on-one, but the issue is that Boston's defense is built around Williams' ability to roam and to leave a bad shooter. We'll leave that one guy in the corner because we think he's going to shoot it at 30%. You can't leave Otto Porter. You let him shoot wide open threes, he's going to hit him at 45%. So all of a sudden that might gum up, that might just cause that little bit of hesitation in rotations or make Williams second guess his rolling to the rim. And then you've got to rely on your perimeter defense, which admittedly, I talked about Utah. Boston's is so much stronger. Everyone's perimeter defense is stronger than Utah's, but Boston's is elite. So, then it comes down to can Golden State's perimeter playmakers beat Boston's perimeter defense? I
do think there were times during the Miami series, though. Miami did try to go really, really small, and it did backfire. Like PJ Tucker was the 5, and they couldn't get a rebound to save their life.
Yeah, but PJ can't shoot.
He can shoot at one spot.
But even then, he's not particularly accurate with it. Like his 3-pointer hasn't, since he left Houston, he really hasn't shot the 3 well from that corner. You can run Bam, but he's not a shooter. Dedmon can shoot, but he's too slow defensively. There just isn't the same level of shooter in Miami as there is at Golden State.
Well,
and we're not just talking Curry and Thompson. We're talking down the roster as well.
Yeah.
So that to me is going to be a really, really interesting matchup to see, or an interesting wrinkle to see how long does it take for Golden State to go small.
Gary Payton's supposed to go back.
Or more to the point, when they go small, how small do they go?
Yeah.
And do they decide to play 5 out, or at the very least 4 out with Draymond Green, and see where Udoka chooses to line up Time Lord?
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, to me, that's arguably the most. Tactically, that's probably the biggest subplot for me.
Who's guarding Tatum?
It's got to be Wiggins, surely.
I would think.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, there's a vision where if Tatum is really on his game, he's going to try to find a lot of switches, and I think if he gets Curry on him a bunch of times, or he's got all these smaller defenders on him, he can really take over the series.
Oh, Curry and particularly Jordan Poole will be hunted by Boston. Because this isn't a case of Peyton Pritchard where you can get by on offense without him. Curry especially, of course, but even Poole, they're desperately needed for their offense.
Yeah.
But Curry is a better defender than what he's given credit for, but Poole is a tire fire defensively. He's awful. So he in particular will be
Tatum's got to be the one to say, I'm the best player on the floor. Let me hunt these bad matchups and go to town. They can win if they do that.
I seem to recall in our conference final preview, we were saying something similar about Luka.
Yes.
Yeah. Look, you're absolutely right. They're going to have to hunt those mismatches. But as far as who guards, who's given the first assignment, it's got to be Wiggins. This is going to be the biggest challenge of Wiggins' career. He's got to stop a red-hot, borderline MVP candidate in the finals. And, a place that he hasn't been. He hasn't come close to sniffing this before. This is all new for him, which may be good for him. He doesn't have that built-in fear. But there's every chance that he could wilt in the spotlight as well. Maybe this experienced Golden State lineup, as an experienced coach in Kerr, is able to insulate him a little bit. Because again, he's not going to have all the pressure on him than Tatum has. Tatum is carrying arguably the most, if not the most prestigious, then certainly the most historically prestigious franchise in the NBA. He's got the entire hopes of Celtic green all around the world on his shoulders.
Yeah.
Not just you. I mean, my uncle who lives an hour away from me in suburban Melbourne. He's a massive Celtics fan. His eldest child, he's in his mid-20s now. He's named Liam James, but he wanted to call him Larry Joe. Wanted to call him Larry Joe Lambert, and his wife nixed it. He got Liam James because at least he got the initials.
Wow.
Yeah, no, he's a massive Celtics fan. I used to watch basketball with him when I was 5 or 6, and he was pushing me hard to be a Celtics fan when I was like this tiny little primary school kid. He could tell you all about the Chief and DJ and McHale. Like he idolized those 70s and 80s Celtics. But that's the thing. Tatum has that all around the world. Golden State fans are relatively, there's not a lot of, traditional Golden State fans. There might be some about my age who love the run TNC sides.
They're 12-year-olds with the little comb over and they got the Steph Curry shirts on.
Exactly. And they've seen success. Boston's seen one title. Outside of that one title, the last time Boston won, Reggie Lewis was alive.
It's been a while.
That's how long ago we're talking. It was Bird, McHale, Parrish. It was DJ and Ainge, and it was that era. So, Golden State fans, yes, there's a lot of them because of recent success, but it is recent success. Boston's is traditional, and they've got fans that have been around for generations around the world. Tatum has a lot on his shoulders here. Wiggins doesn't. So it'll be interesting to see how Tatum handles that as well, knowing that does he press? If he has a bad opening quarter to game one or opening quarter to any game, does he try and shoot his way out of it, or does he be methodical, get the rest of the team involved, get to the free throw line, get his rhythm back? Does he, is he patient, basically?
I want to ask you about Jaylen Brown too, because, oh my God, he's the best player in the NBA that can't dribble the ball. It's unbelievable. The time during games where he just coughs it up. I just don't understand it. I think he can only dribble the ball with one hand.
Well, this is where I think Klay Thompson matches up on him, even though Thompson is 6'7" and relatively stout, but Brown will bullock him. Brown's just much bigger. But being a little bit smaller could allow Thompson to get in a little bit closer to Brown and try and disrupt that dribble early. And that Brown, if he can't get, he's not going to be able to just rise up and shoot over the top. He's not that good a shooter. So I think Thompson is the natural matchup for him.
Yeah.
Thompson's not as quick as he was, obviously, but
that's the thing. Can he get by him? Can he get by him without those stupid turnovers?
There are games when Jaylen Brown seems to be able to dribble not quite Kyrie Irving level, but like a really good, competent one-on-one player.
Sure.
On those games, he will beat Thompson. But I think Thompson, those games where Jaylen Brown doesn't have it with the dribble, I think he could be in a bit of trouble with Thompson one-on-one. Of course, the flip side is that Jaylen Brown is really good at running around screens. Yes, he's a great one-on-one defender, but he's a great off-ball defender chasing his player as well. So I think that Thompson might have a little bit of an issue getting shots off against Brown as well.
I definitely want to ask you about Derek White too. I think they might be at home without Derek White.
Yeah. Look, we talked about Wiggins downgrading his role and becoming much more comfortable because of it. Derek White, I was never sold on him as a starter in San Antonio. But at the same, he played for the USA last year in the Olympics.
He just does smart things.
He does, but this is a much better situation for him than what he had in San Antonio, because here he gets to be option number 5, option number 6. Just make the right play. We don't need you to go and get 15 points. We just need you to make the right play every time, whether that's an extra pass, whether that's a reversal, whether that's take this shot, whether this is attack the closeout.
And he can make his shots.
He can. He's not a great shooter, but that's the thing. He doesn't have that pressure on his shot. He can just do. He can do.
I like when he drives to the lane.
He reads. He can just read the play and make the play, knowing that there's better players around him, that if it gets deep in the shot clock, that they can do their thing. So he can attack a bad matchup if he wants to, and he's going to have a bad matchup more often than he did in San Antonio, because he's got Tatum and Brown with him rather than, DeJounte Murray and Doug McDermott.
It's just an interesting question because I feel bad for Danny Ainge. I mean, this is really he spent years drafting and building what became a team that went to the NBA Finals, and now he doesn't even get to celebrate.
Oh, I think he'll be quietly celebrating. I think he will. I mean, look, as much as he's what's his title at Utah, special advisor or head oracle or whatever he is.
A lot of these guys, he drafted Jaylen Brown, and people look at him like, I don't really like that. And
good player, but at 3.
Why don't you just sit there and take faults? He took a lot of gambles. How many people just didn't think Grant Williams could play? It's nice college guy, but why?
Oh, look, it was. I mean, a lot of people looked at it as another Gershon Yabusele. He's an undersized. He's a fat, undersized, power forward who can shoot a bit.
He's fucking good though.
And play a bit of defense, but what is he going to be? Turns out that for every Yabusele, there's a Williams. You get the two sides of the coin.
Two Williams drafted him too.
But Ainge will be celebrating. He spent, what was it, 16 years or whatever it was, as the president of basketball operations or whatever.
Yeah, long time building that thing.
And you remember he spent 7 or 8 years there as a player too. Like, he's got a lot of history with that club. He'll obviously know the owners like the back of his hand. So I guarantee he will be being Mormon. I don't know whether he drinks, but he might be popping a non-alcoholic champagne if they win it. You
mentioned that Wiggins draft of Wiggins, Parker, and Embiid. There's busts all over the board. He got smart in that draft. Yeah, and look, remember, Danny Ainge has avoided catastrophe sometimes through no fault of his own. Remember 4 first-round picks for Justice Winslow? Yeah.
So if he was in the top 3, he may have taken Parker. I mean, let's face it, he acquired Parker later.
But their big decision was, are we going to take Smart or Julius Randle? And I think he made the right call.
Oh, mate, I wasn't sold on Randle even in the moment. I just looked at him as like, this could be Kenneth Faried, but with ball handling skills.
He made a lot of good decisions, though. They're here because
he's an excellent general manager. Like, a lot of people, and look, I used to give him a bit of crap for the whole, players he almost acquired. But the fact is, Danny Ainge won a championship. If Kevin Garnett's knee didn't go, he would have won 2. I'm convinced of that. And he built 3 different generations of really good Boston sides. He's like that trade of Garnett, Pierce, and Terry to the Nets. That is going to be that is infamous in how much of a swing.
Well, Tatum was a Nets pick.
Yeah, it was. But even around the edges, a lot of people weren't happy when he traded Jeff Green for Kendrick Perkins, but it worked. Even his trades around the edges worked. Ainge was
and he got rid of.
Hang around as long as Ainge did, and you're going to have mistakes. But on the whole, he had so many more wins than he had losses as a GM.
Derek White, basically the only player in the roster he didn't truly acquire.
Yeah, probably. I mean, look, it's their first season, so of course, but first season without Ainge. So so it is very much still Ainge's roster, and that's where that continuity comes into it as well. It is still Ainge's roster, but it's not like you've got a GM in from outside the organization either. This is your new GM is the guy who was on the floor with these guys every day.
He brought back old players that he knew from the Ainge era. Let's bring back Horford. We know him. We trust him. Mm-hmm. Let's bring back Tice. We know him. Mm-hmm. We trust him. Like, even those were Ainge's guys.
But it's worked. So that's the thing. I wouldn't necessarily look at this roster as Ainge's roster. I'd look at it as Ainge's and Stevens' roster. It's just that it was Brad Stevens' roster in a different version of Brad Stevens.
That's fair. It's just, man, like, I feel really bad for Ainge. Like, he's getting no credit today. None.
No, he'll. The smart people will give him credit. This is his roster. He'll pop his non-alcoholic champagne should they win it. He'll be on the phone. He might even be there at the game. You never know.
I hope so. He should get tickets.
Yeah. They should give him tickets.
Yes.
Yeah. So, look, getting back to the series, though, because we've gone on a bit of a, Danny Ainge-centric tangent there. Where, I've spoken about the defensive, how Golden State might be able to disrupt that awesome Boston defense. At the same time, Golden State's defense is number 2 in the league. And I think that Golden State's defense matches up a little bit better with the way they play defense matches up better with Boston because you can leave Looney in there with Grant Williams. The big thing will be, for me, though, is what happens if Tice plays, if they switch Horford to the 5, take Grant Williams out, if they find he's not effective. and sorry, Robert Williams out, and they play Grant Williams at the 4, all of a sudden Boston play 5 out, and then you can't play Looney because he will get absolutely reamed.
I think that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's all these little chess matches as to how each team's going to try and disrupt the other's defense are going to be fascinating. If both these teams just play their offense as they usually would, I think that they'll play into the opposition defense's hands. So I don't think there'll be defensive changes initially. I think it's going to be how these teams change up their offensive focus, their offensive flow, their lineups, and then we'll see the defensive counter. I don't think we're going to see defensive counters to start the series.
I'm more so just worried about Curry. Like, will it matter? Will any of the defensive stuff matter if he's just out there hitting 40-foot threes and he goes on a run by himself? And that's what I'm most terrified of.
Yeah, but you've got, possibly the perfect weapon to try and nullify him.
That is true.
So, we've just spent all this time talking about, Smart defensive player of the year. He's strong, he's quick, he's long, he's tenacious. And, you won't like hearing this, Trey, but he will pull just enough bullshit that he might get Curry off his game.
I don't think he's in the same level as Kyle Lowry. I acknowledge he flops.
He's not. He's at the same level as Kyle Lowry was when Kyle Lowry was his age. But he has the ability to just disrupt Curry a little bit. And Curry's not the type to get knocked off his game too easily, like mentally disrupted. But, if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Marcus Smart.
I agree.
So
Jamie's yelling at me.
No, I still think if if Golden State win, it's Curry will be the playoff MVP. He has to be. I mean, he's got to go for 30 a game for Golden State to win.
That's what I'm terrified of. I'm terrified of him just kind of defense won't matter. It's 40-foot threes, and he hits 7 of them, and shit.
Yeah. And, there will be one game in this series where Klay Thompson will hit 7 threes.
Yep.
There will be one game where Jordan Poole hits 28, including 16 in a quarter. There will be these offensive explosions from various Golden State players.
Yeah.
Whereas Boston, realistically, Jaylen Brown can have those games, but they're pretty rare. Realistically,
Tatum.
It's got to be Tatum. It's got to be Tatum. And you've got a brilliant defensive coach, a brilliant defensive structure. You've got Andrew Wiggins, and if you really wanted to, you could probably even throw Draymond onto him on occasion. Otto Porter's long and smart. There's all these different defenders.
You need a good version of Smart offensively.
Sorry?
Need a good version of Smart offensively.
Yeah, well, that's it. We spoke about Jaylen Brown being, occasionally dominant. Smart's got those games where he can go for, 25 to 30.
His shot's a lot better than it used to be. A lot better.
Oh, well, I mean, it'd want to be. It was awful before. If he hadn't improved on that. I don't get mad when he shoots anymore. He's a good player. He's a good offensive player. He's always been a good distributor without being a great distributor. Good ball handler without being great. But the thing that's opened it up is he can hit open threes. Whereas beforehand, he might have been 30% on open threes, let alone any other type of three.
He actually makes really good passes. There's 2 to 3 passes a game. It's like, how do you see that?
Yeah. No, he's a good passer. He's a good NBA point guard offensively. Defensively, obviously, he's a demon. But the thing that's made Smart such a good player is that his defense is always there, but his offense is elevated to the point where
I like when he drives to the rim.
It's no longer an offense-defense payoff with him. It's good offense, awesome defense, whereas it used to be a very patchy offense with awesome defense.
I don't know. I like him. There's almost not a point guard I'd rather have trusting this team.
That's a big call. That sounds a little bit.
No, I'm saying obviously they're not going to fit another max contract onto the roster.
Yeah.
For his contract money, who would you rather have?
No. See that's a much fairer point. When you're just saying there's no player.
Well, obviously in a fantasy draft, you could have whoever you want, but
exactly,
in the salary cap that makes his money, I don't know if I'd rather have anybody else.
Yeah, and look, he is a very much a heart and soul guy as well.
Yes.
So he's He's that Al Horford was always a barometer for Atlanta and even those early Boston teams that he was on. But Al Horford is, this is going to sound bad, it sounds like I'm going to be denigrating Smart here, but I'm not. But he's a much more cerebral player, much more quiet, much more introverted, whereas Smart is balls to the wall the whole time.
They need him.
He's a fiery, a fire and brimstone shout up from the mountaintop type of leader.
How many possessions did we say Jason Tatum miss a layup? He's laying on the floor. He's not getting back on defense, but Smart comes up and he makes a big play to save him.
That shits me about Tatum. And look, he's not the only player to do it. There's plenty who do. Luka Doncic,
he does it all the time,
the chief amongst them. But he does it so much where he doesn't get the call, and he just takes that 2 or 3 seconds to get up, and then he jogs up the court rather than hauling ass.
But there's so many times on those 5-on-4s because they happen all the damn time. Smart makes a great play. It saves him.
This is where having so many smart defenders helps. Smart, White, Brown, Horford, both Williamses, even Tice is a clever defender. This is where Tatum is an excellent one-on-one defender. He's turned himself into a very good one-on-one defender. I'm less sold on his team defense, but the rest of that team is just outstanding. They are on a string as a team. And then when your weakest defender can't be picked on one-on-one, and that's Jason Tatum, because that is his strength.
It depends on who's on the floor too.
Well, yeah, the best players are going to find ways past someone who isn't elite. So that's sometimes good offense beats good defense. But I think that's the key to Boston. They've got all these great key defenders. Their worst team defender out of their main rotation pieces happens to be a really good one-on-one defender. So you can't isolate him either.
I think he's a really good one-on-one defender.
Oh, he's outstanding. Yeah. He's turned himself into an excellent one-on-one defender. So is it time to make some picks?
I think so.
All right. Oh man, I say this with absolutely no confidence.
Okay.
And this is a genuine coin flip for me. And to be honest, I'm going to say Golden State.
Good.
But I'll tell you what.
We need haters.
But seriously, if I picked up a coin and flipped it and called, Boston heads and it landed heads, I'd feel comfortable calling Boston.
Okay.
I have, this could be a brilliant, brilliant series. I think it'll be a bit of a rock fight. We could see some, 1990s NBA final scores, some of those old, 81-76 Chicago, Utah finals, because both teams are just so good defensively. It'll be whichever team has one player that breaks the shackles will probably win that game. And it's just who can break the shackles the most.
I'm going Celtics in 6. I'm going Celtics.
Yeah. You've got to back them in at this stage, Trey.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
If you're picking Golden State at this stage, you seriously need to hand back in your Celtics card.
I'm a great fan. I deserve to be happy.
Well, to be honest, whether you lose this finals or not, you should be happy. This team's got a big future ahead of it.
Absolutely.
Horford aside, their rotation pieces are still so young.
I don't think they even have anybody to worry about, contract-wise next year.
Probably not.
The only thing they have to do, I think Grant Williams, he's extension eligible. Other than that,
right, he'll get a raise.
Yeah,
he'll get a massive raise. Yeah, no, I honestly don't think you do.
And they weren't even a tax team.
No, that's the thing. You're not. You've got, and the owners have shown that they will pay for a contender too.
Yeah, so
I don't think you've got any concerns. This team's going to
be
a contender
coming up here.
Oh, mate, you'll be a contender for a long time. You've got no concerns. Finals MVP.
Tatum. It's got to be Tatum.
Yeah, if Boston win, it's Tatum. If Golden State wins, it's Curry. It's got to be. Yeah, it's probably the easiest call we'll make.
I just think if the Celtics are going to win this series, Tatum's got to have probably two games where he's going for 35, 40.
Yeah.
He's hunting bad matchups. He's making big shots. I don't know.
Yeah, it's those little threes where he starts falling to his left, and those ones where he's just 6'8" and he shoots over a 6'5" guy.
Those shots always piss me off because like pass the ball, please play a little bit more team offense. But he makes enough of it. So
it happens when I'm coaching. You're sitting there going, "Why did you shoot that?" Oh, great shot. As the player comes back looking at you on the bench gritting, you're like, "Oh, you little bastard."
I don't know. I think there's a pathway to win here for the Celtics. I think they could. This is like the first team they might out rebound.
Mate, it's not even a pathway. This series is a genuine coin flip. This, like I said, Trey, I'm picking Golden State, but it's almost off Golden State's muscle memory more than anything. This is like,
it just feels like
paper thin margin.
Man, it feels like there's a world where like Steph Curry might be really annoyed with Marcus Smart, and like, I don't know. I think Derek White has it in him to guard Jordan Poole. And I know,
but on the flip side, there's a world in which Wiggins' unflappability gets on Tatum's nerves, or Draymond Green starts doing Draymond Green shit and throws Tatum off his
That's
game.
The other thing. Grant Williams has to turn into a little Draymond a little bit.
So this is the thing. For every point you can make, there's a counterpoint to this series. It's such a fascinating series. The easy question is the Finals MVP if either side wins. But for Boston to win, who's got to be their second best player? Not just offensively, like all over the floor. Who's got to be their second best player?
Smart or Rob Williams?
Explain.
I think Smart has to be like really the team leader. Like he's got to defend Curry well. It's got to start there. He's got to defend Curry well, and I think the offense is so much better when he's holding it. Like when they go into these 5-minute stretches where it's like, well, Tatum's the only one that's going to touch the ball here, and you guys just kind of stand around and watch. And he's going to do that little shimmy where he's taking these threes, and they're not really falling. When Smart's leading the offense and handling it, they actually run plays. He's just got to be. I don't know. I think it starts with him.
And Boston do have periods where they just stop running sets.
Yes.
They'll have 4 or 5 minutes where it's just messy offensively.
And they can have that.
And you know that's not going to happen with Golden State. They will run that, that Spurs-esque offense for 40
minutes. How about the one screen where they it was Curry and Poole and they flipped arms and they went around the other circle?
Yeah.
Did you see that?
That was when I saw that, I straight away thought of the flying V from the Mighty Ducks.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
It was like this stupid little gimmicky thing that could only work in a Disney movie, and the Warriors made it work. Like, these guys are ridiculous. Look, for me, if Golden State win,
and Rob Williams, it's got to be Rob Williams. They don't have a guy where throwing lobs. Like if he can get like 5 lobs a game, and put back dunks, I don't know. I don't think anybody can guard him.
Yeah. Look, I personally, like the obvious answer for a second best player for Golden State would be Wiggins, considering he's going to be, the first option on Tatum, as well as a potential bellwether offensively. But personally, I think it's got to be Draymond. We've seen times, notably 2016, where Draymond could be put off his game. And Al Horford is, he's one of those types that can just needle you as well. He's just got that little bit in him. Derek White's got a little bit. That Smart clearly has. There are guys who, if we get the bad version of Draymond, he could get put off his game. But if we get the good version of Draymond, he will be doing the same to the opposition. Now, Draymond won't necessarily have a difficult one-on-one matchup. I think they'll try and have him as the, playing away from the ball as the quarterback. But I think he will spend a bit of time on Jaylen Brown as well. He will spend some time on Horford as well. So he still will have some matchups that I think he can win defensively.
His defense is going to mean so much.
Well, I think for Draymond, the big things is, can he orchestrate that defense?
Yes, the defense part of it, he's got to be on top.
But the bigger thing is that there's going to be so many times where he ends up 4-on-3. That traditional let's trap Curry at half court and kick it to Draymond and let Draymond dictate. Now, how does Boston's 3 defenders, How does that matchup go against Draymond dictating the play with shooters around him? That could be absolutely pivotal. You spoke about how Boston is such a good scramble inside defensively. This is the ultimate scramble. You're 3 against 4, and one of those players is Draymond Green, and he's got shooters around him. Yeah, that's the ultimate test of a scrambling defense. And in scrambling, you've got to make sure you don't leave Poole, you don't leave Thompson, and you don't over-scramble and leave the man you double-teamed in Steph
What
Curry.
do you think Draymond's box score has to look like for a Warriors win? You look at the box score the next day, we're looking at Draymond Green. Oh, okay, this makes sense.
So it's a tough one because a lot of his impact isn't box score.
Yeah.
Now, he gets a lot of hockey assists. He's the guy who, directs the bloke 3 yards away from him to make the defensive play. So a lot of what he does is with his mouth, with his communication. So if you're looking at a box score, though, if he gives the team something like 10 points, 10 boards, and say 5 assists,
that's a great Draymond series.
And yeah, that's it. And a steal and a couple of blocks. You've gotten a brilliant Draymond game.
That happens.
He's not going to score 20 points in a game anymore. It's just not in him.
That happens. I'm worried.
Yeah.
It's really the rebounding part.
I think you'll get a lot of rebounds because I think you'll play a lot of center. I think there'll be a lot of minutes with Looney on the bench and Draymond as the nominal center with Otto Porter out there.
That's the thing. If Looney's on the bench, the Celtics, they got to come up with offensive boards. You got to steal possession.
Yeah. Because, look, Porter is a good rebounder, but not a great one. Draymond is an excellent rebounder, but there's really nobody else.
That's why I think Rob's so important. He's huge.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I don't know. Is there anything else that we need to cover for this series?
Not really, unless you want to do the draft stuff that we talked about.
Oh, we've been an hour and a half in. I think we saved the draft stuff for an actual draft pod.
Fair.
Bring in Carl or something like that, and
that works.
And shoot the shit with him.
Yeah. Celtics in 6.
Warriors in 7.
Be happy. I deserve this championship.
Look, I will not. I mean, I don't have a horse in the race like you do, but I would not begrudge you for a moment if the Celtics won this. And again, like I said, Trey, I can't separate these teams. The only reason I'm going Warriors is muscle memory.
Do you think I deserve a ring?
Do
you think I deserve a championship ring?
That might be going too far.
Well, I don't know. There's a discussion in the Slack that I might have something to do with their championship because I wrote that article on Jason Tatum needing to be slapped because he was mentally weak.
That was
since that time.
Look, I don't know. Maybe you could talk to your unrequited love interest, Jay Crowder, and see what he can pull up for you.
I know. How about it? I should reach out.
Yeah, I'm surprised he hasn't hit
the Twitter account got shut down because the Celtics saw it. I know they saw it.
Look, they absolutely. I'm convinced that's what's happened. Actually, for people who aren't aware, you might need to give like a little 60-second rundown on what happened there.
Yeah, so I wrote an article that Jason Tatum needed to be slapped upside the head. He was just taking too many bad shots. His shooting percentage from 3 was just awful.
Now, when was this article?
They were 18 and 21.
Yeah, so it's quite a while ago.
Yeah,
a few years
long time ago. I said he needed to be slapped upside the head because he wasn't playing well. Like this whole team was just mentally weak. They were blowing leads. I was just tired of it because talent-wise, this is where they should be. I'm not saying maybe they could have lost to the Bucks or whatever, but this is a good basketball team, talent-wise. And they were playing like dog shit, and they need to be called out for it. So I wrote an article. The Celtics saw it. Our Twitter account got blocked, and since that time, they've gone on a run.
Yep. So this is Trey's argument that he was the quiet mastermind. When ESPN do their 30 for 30 on Boston's championship run in 2022, that there'll be a fair bit of Trey Dorbett.
I picture Ime Udoka walking into the room and say, "You see this article today?"
Do people actually pin articles up on the wall? Surely they don't.
Maybe.
It seems like such an antiquated thing. I just can't see that happening in a locker room.
I would do it.
Certainly didn't happen when I was playing the high level ball.
Oh, I would do it. I would do it.
I mean, there wasn't enough media on the level I was playing, frankly, but yeah, like no one ever took that shit seriously. So.
I do.
Yeah, but we're in the media. We have to take that seriously. It's our job. Oh no! Look, I think that probably wraps it all up, though. With I
Celtics in 6.
Can't think of anything else to cover. Yeah, so I got Dubs in 7. You got Celtics in 6.
Okay.
Tatum and Curry for the finals MVPs.
You got a weird prediction?
Weird prediction. All right. Oh, here we go. Here's one for you. Daniel Tice to have a 15-8 game at some point.
Oh, man. Stop it. Holy shit.
Hey, I could have gone weirder. I could have gone back to my man, Source Castillo. Stauskas coming off the bench, 3 threes in the third quarter to get him back into a game. Doesn't get much weirder than that.
I don't have a weird prediction. I think maybe Derek White goes for 20 in a game to save him. Something like that.
I don't think that's all that weird. He's got that in him.
I don't know.
And he'll play the minutes. Like just in regular rotations, he'll play the minutes to do that.
All right. I think we're good. That's Jarrod Prosser. Make sure to follow him. Hey_it's_JP. One more time. Hey_it's_JP. Myself, Trey Dalbert. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next time.